What's up guys, Dan here, Coalcracker Bushcraft. We're back with this thing, the survival tube cache. We're gonna rebuild it, reload it, and send it back out into the wild. So this tube has been in the ground for many years. I retrieved it, opened it, all my gear was good to go. I resealed it and then I stood it in the corner of one of my properties. It took on snow and rain from the top, and then over that 2-year period after it was resealed, it got some moisture in it. Now, not a ton of moisture, but enough to ruin some of the items inside. I'll put that link in the description if you didn't see it. And then following that video, lots of good suggestions, lots of good comments on how to make this thing more water resistant. But I'm gonna do what I did the first time, and that is simply just use some Teflon tape on the threads because it held up really well for over 8 years out there. But now that the tube's all dried out, it's time to repack it with some new equipment. I'm gonna show you what that stuff is. I'm gonna reseal it up, and then I'm gonna take it back to its resting place. Now, being a survival instructor, the survival priorities are at the top of my list: fire, water, shelter, and food. Food is the one I'm not going to replace in here. If you remember the old video, I had an MRE inside here. I'm going to scratch that because I don't know how long I'm going to leave this in the ground. But I am going to address water with just a simple container that has a top that seals on it, and it fits literally perfect down inside there. So we have our water component, and I can boil with that, which leads us into our fire component. So for fire, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a ferrocerium rod, making sure I have a striker with it. Now, I learned from my mistake last time, if you're using a used ferrocerium rod like this one, we're going to have to go ahead and rattle can it, spray paint it. That's going to give it a protective coating over the used parts, and that way it will not oxidize. So that's something I'm going to have to get after and finish before I stick it in here. I'm also going to take some cotton balls and Vaseline. I put them just in a small tin container because that is one of my favorite fire starters. So cotton ball and Vaseline, great little addition here. If I want to keep this dry, just in case water seeps in there, I can always take some electrical tape and wrap it around that. And then just for nostalgia purposes, the aviation fire starting kit. All right, as for shelter, we definitely evolved over the years. So we're gonna stick a T60 shelter in here, compact. We're gonna put the T60 in there. And then because I have extra room in here, I did put a 55-gallon drum liner in here. This would be a good addition if it's really wet or snowy to have on the ground to protect me from the ground. So just with this stuff, originally I was like, I got just about everything I need: water, shelter, and fire. Again, we're minusing the food. So then I thought, let's think about tools. So what we're gonna use here is just an old Mora knife that I have and a saw. I think this would come in really handy if I was building things or had to cut some stuff down. So we were gonna go with a folding saw. Next is a dry, clean pair of socks. This is just an upbeat thing to put on your feet if you had a long day and you're a little bit wet. Clean socks just lifts your spirits no matter what. So I like to have a pair of those in there. Some paracord and some bank line, just because this is something that even if I had my normal backpack with me, I generally don't carry this stuff along for the most part, so it would just be a good addition in case I need it. Now, this is something new that I decided to go with in this kit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a compass in here, some flagging tape for marking, and then also a map of the area in which I'm going to be placing this in. So the centralized point where this is the center of this map. So I can go generally any direction I would want, and I have a topographical map with a compass that I can utilize to navigate out of that scenario. That's what we got going on. So I'm going to load this up, Teflon tape, and lock it in. All right, so with my cap all ready to go now, we're just going to thread this thing on. It should be a tight fit there from the tape. It is. All right, now I found my trusty old pipe wrench. This is the pipe wrench that was originally buried with this canister, so I'm going to keep this along with it also. This was an old one I just found at a junk store, a local junk store that they just sell old stuff. It's real cheap, so it doesn't matter if it gets rusty and beat up, who cares? But it's going to give me an easy way to really seal this thing up and have at it here. So let's get it all sealed up. Let's go bury it. All right, so before we go out, there is some of this paint coming off, so I'm just gonna rattle can this quick just to cover it up. Doesn't have to be perfect, but some of these white spots, while I have the ability to do this, I might as well cover them up. All right, guys, so I found a location in which I want to place my survival tube now. There's lots of different ways that you can do this. A couple things that I can tell you, though, that are important. Number one, remember actually where you're placing this. So for me, there's some major landmarks right in this general area for me to be able to look at and identify. Another thing, use your phone, okay? It's really nice to be able to plot a point on your phone or even in a GPS unit, save it, and that way you can go back and utilize that in the future when you do it. All right, now I can tell you from the first time I put the cache out compared to the second time, all right, and we keep beating this dead horse, I don't like it facing up, but that's just me. You could do it different ways. I want to just try to lay it down in that general way, okay, so not a lot of moisture lays on top of it and it runs off of the side. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, another thing to take into consideration, we're on a slight incline here. So ideal scenario, again, is to put the fixed end of the tube uphill and the sealed end downhill, because again, the water would run past it. It's not going to run back up into it, okay? Now, I like using big down trees. This is a big oak that's been down. It's not super rotted, so it's going to be here for many years to come. Again, another identifier. And then right at the base of this, I'm going to pull some of this material back and dig down just a little bit. I don't have to bury this. At least I don't want to bury it super, super deep. I want to be able to get in there and pretty easily access it, but yet have it hidden enough if anybody would just be wandering through the woods hunting or taking a walk off the main trail, they're not going to notice it that quickly. So let me get this all set in here. We'll take a look at it and then we can be on our way and our survival cache is buried. So phase one, I got this tube against the log and down in the ground about halfway the depth of the tube itself. And then I'm just going to backfill a lot of this debris back over this. And this is a perfect time of year because there is so much debris out here to be able to cover this up. All right, so there's the finished cache somewhere along that log. So you can see I blended that really, really well. Looks good. Maybe one little spot here from that tree right there. I need to get a little bit more leaf cover over, but otherwise looking pretty solid. So nice, blended, and looking good compared to everything else in the area. All right, so that's today's video. The survival tube is back in the earth. Fun. I love this kind of stuff, so I had a good time with it. I hope you all had a good time. If you did, hit like and subscribe. You can also check us out at Coalcracker, Bushcraft.com for all our classes, our gear, and our blog. And until next video, stay in the woods.